Real quick, just letting you know before we get too far into this video, I'm going to start streaming on Twitch again. I'm bringing that back, so my first stream will be 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, February 28th. I'm going to start off by watching some Mac Jones tape. I haven't watched anything from him except for the two playoff games, so I'm looking forward to getting more of a deep dive of him and seeing my general thoughts. You guys can do that with me. We'll watch some other stuff, I'm sure, take some suggestions from the chat. And if you can't make it, don't worry. I am also creating a JKS Clips channel, so you can check that out as well. The link will be in the description below for that. So I'm going to have the full video on there. Check that out. There's also podcast clips, things like that. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled video. So let's talk about Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich. I want to give them both some love because, Arians kind of gets all the criticism and all of the credit when things go poorly or wrong, but Byron Leftwich is the guy making calls. And also Bruce Arians, we know he has a heavy hand in it, and the job they did this season was nothing short of remarkable in my opinion. You could argue they waited way too long to change, but once they made their shifts and once they started making adjustments, they were perfect with those adjustments down the stretch, and especially in the playoffs, and especially in the Super Bowl. That's the game I'm going to be talking about because, it's the most recent game we have right now, and it still will be for a very long time. Man, I miss football. Anyways, back to the video. So really early on, again, it feels like people have already forgotten about how this game started. There was a couple of, it was a 3-and-out and a 4-and-out to start off the game. So right off the bat, things weren't going too well for Tampa Bay, and it was largely through getting these third down and mediums, which Kansas City was able to get the stops. And honestly, Kansas City was able to do this the first time these two teams played early on as well, is Tampa Bay came out throwing, and because of this, Kansas City was able to get some key third down conversions, and this was one of the examples of how they did it. So it's actually going to be a cover zero blitz right now. They're forcing Tom Brady to get rid of the ball quickly, and it's a 3rd down and 7. So the hope is that either Brady has to make a quick throw and it'll be disrupted, or even if Brady is able to get a completion, it might not be 7 yards down the field because he has to get rid of it quickly. Maybe he throws it 3 yards to Mike Evans, he gains 2 more, but then you're still short and have to punt. What ends up happening is Brady actually has a bit more time than expected and makes a tough throw that isn't quite able to be complete. It wasn't a perfect throw from Brady. It was close. It wasn't a bad throw either. Godwin was not able to make a tough catch. We've seen him make those tough catches before, but doesn't work out that time. Later on, we would see something like this. This was on another 3rd down situation that they wouldn't end up converting on. Kansas City, they're playing a cover 1 robber right here. So there's 2 safeties that are showing as though they might be deep, but only one of them is actually going to stay deep. The other one, Tyrann Mathieu, he's going to end up covering the middle of the field, and then just man coverage across the board, and this is a 3rd down and 8 right here. Brady takes the snap. Tampa's receivers just aren't really able to get open, and pressure comes quickly on that one as well, which results in a sack. So good job with the pressure. I mean, that was part of it was, Chris Jones created a nice disruption there, even though he wasn't the one who actually got the sack. I believe that was Frank Clark who did. But, good job at the line. But also part of it is, hey, you're forcing your receivers to just try to win one-on-one matchups straight up. Why not make things easier for them? And that's what Tampa Bay started to do right after the first 2 drives. The biggest way was with something like this. Just run the football. Sometimes be simple. I don't care that you have maybe, at least in terms of like overall talent, you could argue this is the best receiving core ever. I mean, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, not to mention Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson, who have both definitely had their moments in this, and not to mention also the tight end position of Gronkowski and Cameron Brate, plus O.J. Howard was on the team before getting injured. They're loaded, but sometimes you got to play the X's and O's, and sometimes you can't have an ego. You see 2 safeties deep, you run them out of the 2 safety deep look. The way you do that is by running the football. Because look at this blocking concept you see on the screen. What makes this so key, and the reason why it's really valuable to run the football against 2 safeties deep is, again, just think about it logically. I've said this before, but it's important to reiterate. If you're running the football, typically you have to take someone out of the play because the quarterback is just going to hand the ball off, and the halfback himself has to run with the football. So with 2 safeties deep, now there's 2 offensive players who can't block, 2 defensive players who are far away, so everyone is accounted for And, the quarterback and the halfback not being able to block doesn't hurt anything here. So Brady's able to take the handoff, and they get a decent hole, get 6 yards. It's nothing crazy, but it doesn't have to be. The goal of this isn't to get 100 yards in one play. The goal of it is to just basically show we're going to get 6 yards every time you do this. So if you want to keep doing this, we'll happily march down the field this way. You're going to have to change things. So immediately after, now Kansas City is basically saying, well, shoot, we got to play a cover one look, which means that they can't have 2 safeties deep, which is what they like to do. But on top of this, Kansas City wants to play man coverage. Why did they want to play man coverage? Because the last time they played zone, Tampa Bay really torched them. That was in the last game. Kansas City was way better when they were playing man than when they were playing zone. Clearly, their mindset is to play a lot of man coverage. But now for Tampa Bay, you basically know what's coming. Single safety look with man coverage. I mean, there's only so much you can do to fiddle around with that for Kansas City. You can basically have one guy be the, X factor who knows what that one guy is going to do. But for Brady, then he just has to figure out what one extra player is doing. Because, 4 rush the passer, 5 in man coverage, 1 safety deep. That only leaves 1 unknown. So for Tampa Bay on this play, it's a cover 1 blitz. And they can just run a tight end screen pass, and they know exactly how to set this up to have the most success. And watch, Brady takes the snap, he fakes a handoff, flips it to Brait, and they're able to pick up a big gain until the safety didn't even make the tackle at first. That was Sorensen, but he disrupted the play. And that's basically how Tampa Bay was able to have so much success in a lot of ways, was they pretty much knew what was coming, and even if Kansas City tried to surprise them, they were cool with that too, because they had a perfect counter for it every single time. So it was just a tough situation for Kansas City. Like, this one's another really good example of that, I think, where it's going to be a play action, and that's another thing we have to talk about is the play action, because really, I mean, what have Tampa Bay fans been saying all season long? Run more play action. The play action can work. We got to get more play action going. And I was kind of saying, well, the problem is their play action hadn't really been working through a large part of the season, so it's hard to blame them that much. Well, it certainly worked in the Super Bowl, no denying that, and it's kind of just poetic in a sense that one of the biggest criticisms ends up being one of the biggest strengths in the Super Bowl. That's pretty great. But yeah, anyways, the way this play works is it looks like Gronkowski's going to flash over to the left, which you will do sometimes, have a tight end just run over and sort of block the edge rusher, so that way you can kind of use a tight end to block an edge rusher, which is usually a mismatch, but if he has that running start, it actually becomes a pretty even match for the tight end, so that's kind of why some teams will do it. Everyone else just blocks to their right, and you run the ball that way. But of course, this is play action. This is a fake, and instead what they're going to do is, again, they know man coverage is probably coming. They know it's probably a single safety look. So if Mike Evans is able to run forward and just sort of get in the way of where Sorensen is going to end up going, then Gronkowski could end up getting completely wide open because Sorensen is covering Gronkowski on this play. So it's essentially just a rub route because a pick play is illegal, rub route isn't, with the play action. It's very fun concept, I think, and they're running it because they know what Kansas City is probably doing. So watch, Brady takes this snap, he does fake the handoff, finally flips it to Gronkowski, and Mike Evans is doing a great job, I think, of just getting in the way of Sorensen right here. Just sort of stand in front of him, get in his way, but at the same time, Evans knows that he can't create too much contact, or maybe even any contact, because that's how penalties happen. If Evans just runs over Sorensen, it's offensive pass interference. Evans has to do what the ref deem to be looking like an actual route, which I think he's doing a good job of. I think if there was contact, he would have been fine, but at this point, he sees Gronkowski's open, or really he sees how far behind Sorensen is, so he's going to just avoid the penalty, which is smart. And Gronkowski is able to get into the end zone for a touchdown. It's really just brilliant work from, the guys that are making decisions for Tampa Bay, Leftwich and Bruce Arians. And it's cool to see because, again, those guys got a lot of criticism early on in the season. And listen, a lot of it was deserved, I think, but it also just kind of goes to show that they needed time to work on these things. And it's difficult when you have a new quarterback who's played one way for 20 years, dealing with, an older head coach who he likes his things done a certain way. they both sort of had to figure out exactly what to do. And I think that a lot of times it was the Bruce Arians style working, like in Green Bay. A lot of times it was the Tom Brady style working, like it did in the Super Bowl. So just a fun job. And I think really what this came down to from the coaching staff for Tampa Bay, both offensively and defensively, was just egoless coaching. None of them said, well, I want to do what I like to do. They all said, what's the best way for us to win this game? And for the offense, they realized, hey, running the ball is the best way to win this game. I know we have Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't matter because the X's and O's say we should run it here. And on defense, they said, let's play coverage. I know we love the blitz, but let's play 2 safety looks because that's how you beat Mahomes. And it worked out in both instances. Everyone there deserves a ton of credit. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.